In March 2019, I had the pleasure to visit Barry Leitch's place in Bryan, Ohio, a little town with a population of about 10,000. He lives there with his family since the mid-90s in a beautiful house close to the nature, an ideal place to compose brilliant game soundtracks. Let's find what's inside.
Hola, Jesus. ¿Cómo estás, mis amigo?
Very good. And you?
Marvelous. Living the dream.
It's common to find Barry on social media talking to colleagues, fans, and other people from the scene over the internet. Let's go.
Okay. See the rest of the place. Obviously, this is where we watch TV. That's where we tend to play piano. My baby grand. Composed by that was from the Video Games Live in Rio and Belo Horizonte. That's the score from Peru. I got to conduct the little orchestra. And I broke the baton. Did it one time, one was enough.
Upstairs, in his studio, Barry spends hours composing tracks for games, toys, and of course, playing from now and then.
You're not safe after you enter here.
One of those games is very special for us, Horizon Chase Turbo. So we'll sit down with him to talk about how he made this absolutely brilliant soundtrack. We'll ask him about his inspirations and insights regarding how he rescued the best essence from the racing classics he worked on during the 90s. Hopefully, he will reveal his secrets to bring the spirit of those titles to the present in a fresh and modern form.
So they'd contacted me, they wanted to do it, and the big feature from Top Gear that everybody seemed to love was those arpeggios. So I was playing around with different ideas with the arpeggios, trying to come up with something, and I wanted to find a new sound set to use. I wanted to incorporate some like dubstep elements and stuff, and some heavy metal guitars. And let me play you the very first demo version. So I just used the old melody from Top Gear. So some of those elements got cut out and stuff, but the idea with the arpeggios was there, and what I wanted to do was to make it more fanfare like for the start, because this is what, 25 years after the Top Gear had come out. So I wanted it to be, I already had the elements in there that which is kind of fanfare-ish. So on the second version I ended up changing it so it was more focused on that. You get the idea. And so it progressed that way, and I replaced the melody, started coming up with a new melody. I wanted to keep the the chord progression the same as the Top Gear Vegas piece, because I wanted to have that fluidity, that instant, I know where I am with this tune, you know, and an easy move into the modern era. So the tune evolved. I mean, it went from that fanfare, added all the retro elements, enhanced the arpeggios, you know, found better sounds. I spent a lot of time looking for just the right sounds to get it where I wanted it to be. And I think it just evolved nicely, and the feedback I got from the AQUIRIS guys was great. I mean, the first time I sent them a tune, they were like, "This is fucking awesome. Just keep going." You know, usually there's a lot of back and forwards arguing on that first tune. You know, we don't like the drums, but AQUIRIS were just really happy, or Israel was really happy. I don't know if the whole team got to hear it, or if it was just Israel that was dealt to handle me. Israel was great to work with. Would work with him again. But that led to the second tune, which was then I'm starting to think about this, you know, these guys are enjoying what I'm doing, so what can I do next? And the next tune, I thought, well, let's do a big fanfare. This is going to be, if they're going to let me have this much creative freedom, I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to have this Return of the King. I'm excited to write it, you know. I'm like, yeah, let's write some music and have a big fanfare. So let's see what the beginning of the next tune was. It would be Race 1, the very first version. You know, it's big heavy guitar. Da-na-na-na-na. Just wanted that really dirty guitar and powerful. Just fun. I wanted it to be, you know, triumphant, fanfare-ish. I wanted people to feel, yeah, we're going into something special here, you know, get that excitement going, and it's all, you know, the start of the game. You want everything to be, let's go, it's going to be awesome, kind of feel. And then, you know, that tune evolved from there. So the guitars, I've got the guitars in the background just sliding up and down, and you know, your car is sliding left and right around these corners. I really wanted that feeling of like you were going off the rails. That was what we ended up naming the tune, just because the way the bass line goes, there's a lot of discordance on it, so it feels like it's playing the wrong notes. The guy's playing too fast, you know. You've got that feeling of speed there with it going. You just feel like you're about to go off the rails at any second, you know, you don't know where you're going to go. And combined with there's like 2 or 3 different arpeggios in the background. I was getting carried away with the arpeggios, putting in so much stuff, so your ear's all over the place. Usually when you listen to a song, you've got a bass line, a backing, and a melody, and drums, you know, and then with all this stuff going on, you don't know what to listen to. Are you listening to the melody, or you listening to the arpeggios? So when you hear these tunes again and again and again during the game, your ear finds something new to listen to. If you're not focusing on the melody, you follow the arpeggios and you hear a completely different tune, you know. And that was the goal behind writing it, so it wouldn't be so repetitive like the original was. I mean, Top Gear was so simple, and people listened to these tunes again and again and again. It would drive them insane. Alright, so let's go to race 2. Very different to start with. So I wanted to have a reference to the original Top Gear in there, but I wanted to start in with a Latin influence because it was so popular in South America. I wanted to let that music influence the game. I mean, that might not have been what people wanted because everybody in South America, in Brazil especially, I think they have a culture where if it's from another country, then it's more interesting, it's better, they're more excited to listen to stuff from outside their country. But I wanted to acknowledge that the attention that I'd got from Brazil especially had definitely influenced me. So I wanted to add that influence in with the rhythm, and in the end we ended up cutting out that introduction thing, and I wanted to add new elements and sounds, some dubstep stuff in there, some little whap sounds and things like that, which I don't know, I think it worked pretty good. It was fun to do. Didn't that one become Bleeding Fingers? I think I added a crazy solo at the end for Mega Driver, Nino Mega Driver. So I'm writing the tune, and I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, somebody's going to try play this on guitar, you know, and we've got that melody at the beginning that's easy to play. And I thought I should write a crazy guitar solo at the end, and just with Nino, because Nino's I'm friends with Nino. I stayed with him in Brazil a couple of times. He's a great guy. So I decided to make this crazy solo that it would be impossible for him to play. And you know what? That son of a played it. He could play it. He practiced and practiced and came back a few weeks later with a video of him playing it. It's like, you son of a gun, man. Trying to defeat him. For that, it was mostly just percussion. I was trying to get that South American dance feel, the dun, 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 that kind of thing, you know, the street carnival type thing. And that bled into the next tune as well, because even though I started this one with that feel in mind, it turned into something else. It turned into the Mega Driver tune. Because Nino was the first one to contact me from Brazil, and he sent me an email saying, hey, I can play Top Gear on guitar. And I was like, go off, no you can't, that's crazy. No, because it's, you know, the arpeggios are so fast. And he's like, no, I can play it, watch. And he sent me a video of him playing on the guitar. It's like, he can play it, that's mental. I mean, he must have taken him, I know it took him a long time to get to be able to play it perfectly. He does a great job. So the next one, obviously, I'm thinking South America, Rio, carnival stuff. And I'm thinking I want to come up with a piece that's definitely like a street carnival. I wanted to sound exciting, you know. So let me play it to see where we started on it. Race 3. The very first version's gone. It's deleted, but I've got the second version. I think this is where I actually started the tune, with just the bass line and the drums, because I wanted that carnival feel. And then I went back and I added the introduction, just because I wanted that. I'm a big fan of Bach's music, and I really wanted something almost like a church organ, kind of playing this ominous, dark arpeggio. You know, Bach does amazing stuff with his arpeggios and chord progressions and stuff, so I wanted to do something like that, and I added that to introduce and switch to the carnival thing. Because it's never a bad thing to switch your styles or have separate parts in the tune to keep the listener interested. You know, because if the whole thing was like that introduction, you'd turn it off, it'd be too much. Or if it was all percussion the whole way through, you'd be like, you know what, I could listen to something else now. So that one evolved pretty naturally, but that was the hardest tune to mix, to get the mix right on it. Every time we mixed it, we turned down the whistle sound. There's a that goes through it, and every time we kept turning it down, you could still hear it. I think it's almost at the quietest setting. It's so damn loud. And getting all the percussion right, because there's so many drums playing in there. I like that vision of everybody banging on drums, just marching down the street. In the end, we called that Brazilian Street Race. It was me and my son mixing it, and we had a lot of fun doing that one, arguing about because I think there's explosions in the tunes as well. There was a sound I used. There was that sound of a missile coming in. I mean, you don't get to hear that anywhere. And it was such a cool sound, that whistling sound with a big explosion on the end. And I wanted to include that in the tune, because it sounded like, you know, when something passes you really fast, like a missile or another car. And I thought, when you're playing the game, this will really work. You know, it's not going to work every time you hear it, but, you know, 1 out of 5 times, 10 times, you're going to be playing the game and you're going to hear that missile sound, and a car's going to shoot past you. And Chris was arguing, he's like, why would you put this in the tune? It's not right. I'm like, but it works. If you play it towards the end of a bar, it's like a cymbal rising, the kind of sound to give you that feeling of a new bar starting. And using it percussively like that, I think it really works. And when you play it in the game, it definitely works. I love it. It's one of my favorite things. So I took the incoming missile sound and then I had to explode and reversed it so it has some tail going out. Race 4. Now Race 4 was a fun one because I started that as an Indian tune. I thought, okay, I've written 3 tunes that are fairly similar. I want to try do something completely different now, and I wanted to switch to like an Indian music scale. And with it being an Indian music scale, I tried to, I was incorporating Indian music. And this was one of the only tunes that they rejected because it sounded too Indian. Let me play it. You get the idea. It's got all the elements that made it into the final tune, but they were just other instruments. I had these great Indian sounds that I wanted to use, the sitar, and there was an Indian orchestra I really liked the sound of. But sadly, because it sounded so Indian, it tied it to a single geographical area. You couldn't have that music playing anywhere else in the game. And at the time, I didn't realize the scope of the game. I didn't realize that there was going to be so many damn tracks in the game, because there's like fucking 100 levels or something. Everything that was in that original Indian tune pretty much made it into the final version. which I ended up calling Retro Race because I did this. I found some cool retro sounds that I wanted to use, and it all sounded. It's almost like the old video game Ghosts and Goblins, where it's kind of spooky and scary with using these retro sounds. It fit with the music, and it was a nice change. It was, hey, we're going to do something completely different now, and then come back to the main tune. You keep the listener kind of interested. So yeah, that was fun, and that's how it ended up being called Retro Race. At the same time that I'm working on all these, we started talking about the secret proposal. At the same time as I'm doing these other tunes, I started work on this secret proposal tune. Now, one of the favourite pieces of music that me and Karen loved was a piece from a movie called Amélie. It's Une comptine d'une autre l'après-midi by Jan Tiersen. So I started with the piano melody he plays, and I was trying to work in the Top Gear theme into it, which is what that was. It's simple, and the idea was we would tell a story while it played. And leading up to the wedding proposal that we hid in the game. Oh, it was a very personal piece to write. I'm tears running down my cheeks when I'm arranging this, because the original piece of music's just so beautiful. And then I'm trying to work my own stuff into it together. It's just, it's incredibly emotional. That was really, really personal. And then Israel changed it. Because I had written the music to be read, listened to a story that I'd written, explaining it all. In the end, there was a much condensed version of the story. My version was a lot longer, and Israel's like, no, there's too much shit there. People aren't going to read all that. But such is life, It was fun to do. But that piece extended, going on, getting. I developed it over several weeks. So Race 5, originally when we contracted with AQUIRIS, we're like, the agreement we came to was like, I'll see how many tunes we can get done in this time frame. I think it was like a month or 2 months. And the fifth race tune was going to be the last tune that I wrote for the game. In the end, we came back and wrote some more for it, but Race 5 was definitely going to be the final tune. So I thought, right, I'm going to write a finale. And in all seriousness, I'm getting old. I mean, this could be the last piece of music I ever write for a video game. Which is a scary thought. So I thought, well, if I'm going to write something, what do I want it to say? Well, I want it to be badass. I want it to acknowledge and to have some references to my musical career, the pieces that I've written and stuff. And I tried to work everything in there. I think I started with a bass line that was playing the James Bond theme. I wanted to be badass. I wanted someone kicking the door open and just, that image of someone, walking out the room or something, Let me see what the first version was like. Bit James Bondy. Dun, dun, dun. But you could hear where I was going with that, right? Just the James Bond feel to start with. I wanted to be badass, and then this big epic finale. Because the very first video game that I got published, which was a terrible piece of music, but it had that descending scale chord progression. And I thought, you know what? It would be nice to return to that. And because it's one of those chord progressions that people use a lot for finales and stuff, and it worked. Everything just worked, you know. It's the final tune, could be the last piece of video game music. It's also my first, so let's do that. And I think I spent 9 hours just on the last 16 bars or so of the music for that tune. I even posted a dissection of it on SoundCloud, because each element of it had there's a little a flute-like melody that I play, a little Scottish type melody, you know, and acknowledging my roots and where it came from and stuff. I don't know. So as a composer, if you can find an idea for a tune, you fucking stick with it, you know. Because there's nothing worse than, I wrote another tune and I wrote another tune and I wrote another tune. Well, if you can find something that you can get excited about and work it into that tune, it makes a world of difference. It always helps the piece of music. It can be a hard, tireless job, thankless job. I mean, I think Top Gear was like that. Because it was just another job. There was only one piece in there that had the inspiration and excitement, and that was the Vegas piece, and that's the one that everybody seems to like the most. The other ones are like, tunes. Because that's how I was like, get the tunes done, go and do something else. So inspiration is everything. Then they came back and they were like, we need more tunes, because that's not enough tunes. So we got race 6. Sounds like I pretty much just sat down and wrote it. In the end, I ended up calling that tune Gente. We named it after our daughters. My daughter's called Jennifer, Karen's daughter's called Taylor. So Jennifer and Taylor, Gente. But yeah, that was I just wanted to write a melody. I guess the other tunes, I've been so apprehensive of writing something that was too repetitive. I definitely wanted to avoid being super repetitive. So for this one, I was like, you know what, I'm going to write a melody, write something different, and a long drawn out. It worked. I think it worked anyway. What else do we have? Oh, the Covenant tune. So, yeah, Israel was like, look, we want to have an Easter egg in the tune with the Top Gear original Top Gear tune. I was like, okay. But I didn't want to just remix the Top Gear tune. I wanted to do it differently, you know, add something to it. And what it did was I changed it from 4/4 timing to 3/4 timing. Which made it feel slightly, you know, bouncier, has a nice bouncy beat to it. And I added these really heavy, deep electronic kick sounds. And they hated it. I don't think they liked it at all. I don't think Israel liked it. So I wanted to add something new. I wanted to be different from all the other versions out there, because everybody else has done a cover version, and I didn't want to just do that. I didn't want to do just another cover version, because I wanted to stand out, and I liked the energy that I had. It felt like a big party, everybody jumping up and down. In fact, when we were writing these tunes and doing the mixes and stuff, I would go and listen to it in my car, and we would drive around town with the music playing, and, you know, check how things sounded on the car stereo. So we, you know, you can make sure you hear all the hi-hats and all the quiet sounds in there. And I was testing this one because I put in those big, it's a couple of nice big meaty bass sounds and stuff. And as I was driving around listening to them, I've got it in my car stereo that had a big ass subwoofer in it, you know, the windows would shake in the car. And I drove past one of my buddy's house while I was listening to this tune, and he texted me a few minutes after that. He's like, did you just drive by my house? Because he could hear the womp, womp, womp. I loved that big heavy energy it had to it. But yeah, AQUIRIS were like, yeah, that's great. When are you going to remix a Top Gear tune? I didn't want to do that. It's not, they wanted it to sound more like it. So I continued on. I finished the secret, the Easter egg tune, the wedding proposal thing. And then, yeah. And of course, I send that to Israel, and he's like, "Yeah, this is awesome. This is what you should do." Just didn't want to do just a straight cover of the old tune, but it's what they wanted. They loved it, so I had to do it. And I still think it's the worst tune in there. I don't like it. What was next was the menu music, because he's like, "Oh, we're going to need menu music." So let's hear the very first version of that. That's different. Bass lines there. Yeah, it was a groove edit of the title tune. While we were doing this, there's a famous Brazilian DJ, Groove Delight, and I'd found they had done a remix of the Top Gear music, just this really heavy club version, which was really cool. It was Groove Delight with Jonathan Viper, DJ Viper, and I'd got talking to these guys and stuff, and she said something while I was talking to them that really made me stop and think. She made a reference to the music being your art. This is your art. This is what you do. You know, this is my art. It's what I do. I've never really thought of my music being my art, because usually I'm a hired composer. I'm there to do a job that, you know, they need music, so I write the music. I never really thought about my artistic input. You know, to me, it's very much like painting a wall. You know, you need a wall painted, paint the wall. Write a tune, is a tune. You know, but I'd never really thought about that artistic side of it, and it's made me stop and think a lot. So, yeah, they had done this slower paced Top Gear remix, and I thought, you know what? I've just rewritten the title tune, the Horizon Chase title music. So, what if I did a slower remix of that in the style of Groove Delight? You know, with a nice heavy bass sound and stuff. So that's what I ended up doing. Next tune, Race 7. Now, this one started off, it was a slightly slower paced tune, because by this point I'm running out of ideas what to write. And if you remember all the old video games, you've no doubt, if you played or downloaded any, you've always seen a cracktro, the pirated introduction that has a little piece of chip music at the beginning. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to write a piece of music, because the game's going to get hacked anyway. Let me write a piece of music that the hackers can just take and put on the intro for the pirated intro. So I called the piece of music Cracktro. You get the idea. I wanted it to sound like a little Cracktro intro. Da, 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 da. The exact sort of thing you would expect to hear in a Cracktro. But when I sent it to them, they were like, "Nah, it's too slow. Speed it up and add more guitars." So that was one of the few I got feedback on. So let's speed it up and added more guitars. Then we have Race 8, which I don't seem to have a render of the very earliest version. And I remember before I talked about Groove Delight and Jonathan Viper. So I had looked at a few of his tunes and stuff. And there was a great video of him playing this gig on a beach somewhere in Brazil. Just this great image of a DJ there with a bunch of guys and girls all just jumping around, and the bass line for the tune was that da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-dun. I thought, what great energy that has. So I thought, what if I took that and just ran with that? Let's just have a big party towards the end here. That's how that one came out. Just that little idea. It's all about that little inspiration and excitement. Okay, race 9 was the final one. MC balls to the wall is what I called it. MC for my sons, Michael and Chris. So that's why I'll use that. And, balls to the wall is it's a Scottish phrase for when you're up against the wall, when you're, you know, how's things going? Oh man, I'm balls to the wall with this. I'm fucking busy, you know. And just trying to get the tune written and done. I wanted to write something that was heavy metal. So maybe I didn't finish that bit. But yeah, there was a bit in that with the guitars. There's a couple of guitar sounds, and one of them you can't really hear in the final mix. Where I was doing this, like Ride of the Valkyries, the piece of music. I don't know. Hang on. This is the background guitar. And for the most part, it's just playing rhythm pieces. But this little bit, like Ride of the Valkyries, the Wagner piece. So you don't really hear it in the final mix, but if you separate out just the guitars and the arpeggios, it really sounds like Ride of the Valkyries in there, because the arpeggios are, you know, going up and down these scales and the little guitar playing. I was quite pleased with that bit. You wouldn't hear it in the final tune though, it's a shame, but for me I got fun with it, I had fun with it. So that was pretty much the end of Horizon Chase. After that, Horizon Chase World Tour, I went through and I finished the final CD mixes and everything. Just put everything together, and at the very last minute I did that lullaby for Cecilia. During the project, Israel had a daughter, Cecilia, his wife had a baby, and so I thought it'd be cute to take, because so much of my work is on children's toys. I've written so many lullabies. I thought, well, what if I took my title tune and I just, you know, changed the instruments, made them nice soft bells and stuff, and would it work as a lullaby? And I thought it worked pretty damn cool, pretty damn well. Israel seemed to really like it, so it was my gift to him, my way of saying thank you. So whenever I write lullabies for children's toys, usually everything has to be in a major key. If I even so much as use a minor chord in there, the marketing people at the company they're like, you know what, that sounds sad, that bit. It makes you feel sad. Don't put that in there. so everything is all major keys. And it gets old. You can only write so many tunes with the exact same chords. Your major chords, there's only so many chord progressions. And I think that's a mistake, because many traditional lullabies have the odd minor chord in there, and it makes because when you're a kid and it's time to go to sleep, you're sad, you don't want to go to sleep, and lullabies have that ability to, a lot of lullabies can make you cry or feel sad because you don't want to go to sleep. You want the day to keep going. So it's been a constant battle for years whenever I try and introduce minor chords into a lullaby. Occasionally I've managed to get one through. I'm getting better at it, getting one under the radar. So it was nice to arrange that, so it, because I thought it really worked, even though the majority of it was minor chords. It's a peaceful piece. The Horizon Chase Christmas Carol, which was a fun little thing I did around Christmas. For years I'd been thinking about releasing a Christmas tune and just putting it online just for fun. And I wanted to do that, what was it, Thing of the Bells? Carol of the Bells, because it's a nice minor keys, dramatic. It's not ho ho ho, Santa's coming to town. It's a kind of bleak sounding Christmas song. So let me play it for you, what I came up with. Years and years ago, when I was at Boss Game Studios, I was living in Seattle. My next door neighbor was a Mormon, and he's like, hey, you do audio stuff, we do a Christmas show every year, and would you like to record it for us? Because you're an audio guy. I was like, sure, why not? So I'd take my DAT player from work, and we go to this Mormon church. I'd never been to a Mormon church before. I had no idea what to expect. I'm expecting a little church like the ones we had in Scotland. And we get there, and it's a pretty big church. It's like the size of a football field, I'm like, this is a fucking big place. And so I set up my DAT recorder and a couple of microphones, and I decided just to record, this stereo mix from the stage. And they have these Mormon choirs come out, and when they came out to do this one, and they sang the Carol of the Bells, and it was amazing. It was just incredible hearing that live and stuff. And then at the end of the concert, this was the bit that I thought was funny, because he's thanking everybody at the end of the show for people that came to sing, people that did the lights, and thank you to Barry Leitch for coming and recording this. Can you just stand up and turn around or whatever? And so I stood up. I'm sitting down at the front row, and I stand up and turn around. And the whole time I'd been watching the DAT recorder, trying to make sure the levels were right. So I hadn't noticed what was going on behind me, and this hall had filled up. So it was a football pitch size thing of people. Must have been fucking 5,000 people in that first hall. But then there was doors at the back of the hall which opened up even further. So there was another football pitch. There was twice as many people as I expected there, and I turned around and they're all applauding, and Jesus Christ, I didn't expect that at all. It was very daunting for me, because up until that, for me, 99% of my time is spent alone in my office, just me. You never see other people, you never, you get a little introverted, I guess. In between Horizon Chase World Tour and Horizon Chase Turbo, there was about 2 years, maybe even 3, no, 2, I think. And in that time, I got involved with Video Games Live, and I did an arrangement of a medley of Top Gear and Horizon Chase World Tour title themes. I arranged this orchestral piece for the full orchestra that blended the two together. So this orchestral sound had caught my ear. I definitely was influenced from that. So while Horizon Chase had a world tour, had a very distinctive sound, I think we established a strong style for it. It has its own style. The sounds that were used, you hear that sound, it's the sound I used in Carol of the Bells for the arpeggios. It's just a big loud that sound. You hear that sound and you go, oh, that's Horizon Chase. You know, that's the Horizon Chase sound. So in coming back to compose more tunes for it 2 years later, I was excited to use some orchestral sounds, you know, a nice big string section, because I liked how that sounded in the orchestra. You know, writing for that was fun. And we got to go, me and Giovanni and Felipe got to go on stage in Rio and hear the world premiere of that played. That was great. Those guys got to connect with the audience and stuff. It was crazy. Up until that point too, you have to remember, people always were telling me, oh, Horizon Chase is big, or Top Gear is famous in Brazil. And you're like, yeah, okay, it's famous. It doesn't really hit you, or it didn't really hit me until I was standing or off to the side of the stage waiting for them to perform it for the first time. Because between every song, the audience were shouting out the pieces of music that they wanted to hear. And in between every song, people were shouting, Top Gear! Top Gear! You know, this is in between shouting for Castlevania or Mario, and, you know, they would shout for other games too, but people kept shouting for Top Gear, and I'd never experienced that before. I mean, that really hit me in the chest, you know, when you've created something that people connect to. And then going on stage and having it performed, it was incredible. I've still got it as my ringtone when the audience are going, Barry, Barry, Barry. That was nice. So that's my ringtone. Yeah, that was emotional. Hearing that when you walk on stage, shit. Didn't expect that. I talked about the music. Giovanni and Felipe came on stage. They talked in Portuguese, so I don't know what they said. They probably said something about me. Who's this fucking gold guy here? I don't know. So, but the audience seemed to like them. I mean, they were really excited. They all knew about Horizon Chase. They were big fans of it, so they were all excited to hear it. And the funny thing was, for as noisy as the audience were there, as soon as the music started, everybody shut up because they wanted to hear it. During a lot of the other songs that were played, you know, people would cheer and clap along, and but when Horizon Chase played, or Top Gear and Horizon Chase, everybody just went quiet. They wanted to listen. I mean, and it's like, yeah, that's what I wanted, man. And Tommy had me sit on stage on a fucking chair, which ironically wasn't the best place. He said, oh, this is the best seat in the house because I'm sitting up on stage listening. But I was sitting in that weird spot between the speakers and the orchestra. So all I can hear is like the cello player. And it's eerily quiet out there in that space. Because Tommy's jumping about playing his guitar and stuff, and he said something to me, and it was quiet. He was speaking quiet, almost whispering, and I could hear him perfectly because that's how quiet it is in that little spot. It's a really strange part of the stage. I didn't know about that either. Didn't expect it. Strange. So on to Horizon Chase Turbo. So that Race 10, which I called Saraband on the Run, because it references, there's a classical piece that I referenced by Handel called Saraband, which is a very slow, dramatic piece. It's very British, I think, too. I have an association with it, with England. But I like that it's a final piece of music. It's kind of a piece of music you would play at the end of a film. You know, everybody's dead. It's kind of sad. It's somber. It's morose. And that was where I was starting from. You know, I don't know if that's the right way to describe it. Just having that idea. Any inspiration is good inspiration. So that and the orchestral sounds and the way I played the strings was a little there's a little musical reference to Rob Hubbard's Monty on the Run piece. Because when I was growing up, when I was 13, 14 years old, hearing that piece of music is ultimately what inspired me to get into writing music for video games. So I thought, you know, music, it was nice to give a musical nod, a reference to that. Or it's just an idea. I mean, for me, I justify it saying it's a musical nod or acknowledgement, you know, a tribute. But it's that idea. Dun, 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 dun. The way the strings play. Short, or staccato rising scales. But that was Race 10, Saraband on the Run. After that, the big thing they wanted to do was they were adding China and Japan as their cups, as locations. So they wanted some pieces of music that could geographically, that could match those geographic locations. In writing Asian Oriental music, I mean, I know there's a big difference between Japanese and Chinese music, but to us Westerners, you know, we can't really tell. The average listener, if they hear something that sounds Oriental, then yeah, it's either Chinese or Japanese. So I started. Let me see where I started with them. Race 11. So that little bit of melody there, that dun 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 dun. When I was a child, there was a video game called Way of the Exploding Fist. It was a kung fu game, and the music was arranged by a guy called Neil Brennan. And that piece of music is from an earlier. It's a piece of music called Dance of the Yao People, which in itself is a amalgamation or mixture of a whole bunch of traditional Chinese music. So the roots of the music are long gone. Nobody knows where it was written. It was something that Chinese people played. And so for me, my connection to that tune was, when I think of Chinese music, that's what I think about, that piece. So when I started writing that tune, I went straight to the melody that I wanted to use. And I thought, you know, I shouldn't use that. You know, I should be more creative than this. I'm better than this. I can write my own damn Chinese tune. But that was the inspiration. That was the overall theme in my head of where it was going. And I was like, no, I can't do this. Let's push that out. And I kept pushing the melody out, and I started writing more my own piece, trying to create this Chinese type sound or melodies and stuff. but I kept coming back to that damn melody. I couldn't get it out of my head. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop it finding its way into the piece. So the whole piece is basically just a setup to hear that melody. I ended up writing two or three minutes of music, and at the end I was just like, well, I could end it or I could have it just go to that melody, because that's what I want to hear at the end anyway. And it's kind of like an Easter egg, a little special Easter egg at the end of the tune. So you have to listen to 2 minutes of my music to get the Easter egg at the end of the Wave the Exploding Fist music. And we ended up calling it Wave the Exploding Back Left Tire, because that's the reference. Because you just try and don't write Wave the Exploding Fist. Don't write it. Oh fuck, I'm just gonna write it. I can't help myself. It's got to be done. It needed to be done. Somebody had to do that tune in the Horizon Chase style. It had to be done. So on to the next one. Race 12. What's that one? Okay, so race 12, from the very beginning, it has a little church organ arpeggio type sound. I'm a big fan. I like that big church organ sound. I like, I always say things are biblical. You know, it's bigger than it's an epic thing. I want it to be big and epic, and for the most part, most of those tunes that I'd written so far for the game, I tried very carefully not to have just a pop song, you know, a verse, chorus. I wanted to keep it interesting so you could listen to it again and again and again. But with this one, I mean, it takes a lot of work doing those tunes that constantly change. They have so much going on. I mean, it's each Horizon Chase tune, if you break it down into the arpeggios and the bass lines and stuff, there's enough material for like 3 or 4 songs from every piece that's in that game. And I thought, you know what, I just want to write a simple song for this one. I want it to be like the old tunes, just reference that simple melody structure. So that was how I started approaching it. And I figured this was going to be, I know it was the second last tune that I wrote, but I thought this one was going to be the last. So I thought, okay, it's the last hurrah. It's my last tune. It's going to be a little fanfare. Da-da-da, da-da-da. Just do it that way. Little fanfare at the start and go from there. Then I wrote the big melody. I did harmonies, and I just thought, make this the big epic song at the end. And there was a lovely little bit at the end that was purely accidental, the last 8 bars of the tune, where it drops to this medieval feeling thing almost, where it's like the tune never ends, the dance goes on and on. So that was where that one came from. And then they came back and said, no, we need another Chinese tune. So yeah, this was the even bigger finale. As if the finale one wasn't big enough, this one had to be bigger. So, and it had to be Chinese, which was the hard part, because I've already written a Chinese tune, so I've shot all my Chinese ideas, and I've got to come up with another set of Chinese ideas. So that was tricky. And for this tune, I had the chord progression roughly worked out where I wanted to go, a whole bunch of arpeggios and stuff, heavy guitar. And I thought, you know what, when a band is on stage, you know, and they get to that point where they have a little break. They're still playing their song. They extend their song and they talk. We've got Jim on drums, we've got Dave on guitar, and they go through the band and stuff like that. And I thought it would be cool to do something like that. And I came up with this extended section where they were talking about not what they were talking about stuff, but just the extended segment where they would hold the same pattern. They keep that. They reach that energy level, and they just kind of get trippy with it. It gets repetitive, and they just kind of build it up and build it up. Just when you think you've got to the crescendo, they keep going and going. It was fun to write, and I thought that when I wrote that, I thought that was the biggest finale that I'd ever written. Because all these tunes, I get caught up in that finale emotion. This is the big ending, and you just keep going and going. We ended up reworking the title tune because Israel wanted the title tune to sound slightly different for. I think he actually wanted a completely different piece of music for Horizon Chase Turbo. But I thought the original title tune was pretty good. I thought it really suited it. I was locked into the original title tune. I didn't really want to change that, and I think Israel would have preferred a new title tune, an all new piece, or something sounding more epic, or I think he wanted it to sound premium, more like a premium game than a retro game. And I ended up changing a bunch of the arpeggio sounds so they weren't so retro. And I got a guitarist friend of mine, Ryan Shin, a very talented guitarist. He laid down some guitar work for it to use live guitar instead of sequence guitar. So that was great, and I think that really added something to it. He added some nice harmony stuff that I wouldn't have written. But yeah, we got through the title tune. I think Giovanni cut the first 4 bars off of that because it's slow paced. Giovanni's always cutting pieces of my music off. He does it for all the videos. Giovanni, stop fucking with my tunes, man. The tournament, the completion tune for when you finish the very end of the game. So that one, another final finale. They sent me a little video of the car drive for the ending sequence for when you finish the whole world tour, and it's a cool car shooting off into the distance. And they had some cool animations, and then there's a big bit where there's credits and stuff. Now, I have been known to be a little lazy when it comes to writing game completion music, because out of all the people that buy the game, if 100 people buy the game, maybe 3 people, 5 people will actually play it to the end and get to hear the game music. And I have this chord progression that I've used more than once for game completion tunes. I can play it for you if you want, because if you hear that, you know you finished the game. Happy music. So, like I said, touch lazy, that's my favourite game completion chord progression. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to write that. I'm going to use that again. And I start writing this tune. And I'm not thinking much of it, because there really only was about a minute of video. And I start writing this tune, and I'm getting excited about writing it. Let's see what the next version sounded like. Yeah. Dun, dun. that's exactly where I stopped writing it. And I sent it to them, and I thought it was shaping up pretty good. And I realised that, well, the credits are going to start scrolling by, and I don't know how long the credits are going to last. So I start extending the tune, and I'm getting excited into this because this is... by this point, I've played Horizon Chase. I know Horizon Chase World Tour. I know how much work is involved in finishing the damn game. You have to spend days playing all these levels. And I thought, well, if I've played the game all the way to the end, I want something special. I would be disappointed if I played all the way to the end of the game and I got a 1 minute piece of music. I thought, I'm going to make it longer because the credits are going to draw out for a bit, and I can do some fun stuff. It's the credits tune, you know. So I get some retro sounds. I want to write some tunes that are referencing where I started writing music on the Commodore 64. And I'm just going to write this big, huge piece, you know. And every time I watch the video and I'm listening to the music, it's getting me emotional, you know. I've got tears running down my cheeks writing this thing, just because it's got that little air of sadness to it about it as well. It's the end. This is the end of the project. It's not gonna... There's no more tunes after this one. When we can't find any more stuff to do for it. So I ended up writing a 5 minute piece of music instead of the 1 minute or so that he wanted. And I think I sent a message to Israel saying, you're going to need to put more credits in, because the credits would finish. And when you finish the game, when I played the game through Horizon Chase Turbo on PlayStation or PC and finished it, and you get that movie and you get the full 5 minute piece of music, I think it really is quite emotional. It was emotional for me anyway, because I was sad that it was over. I really enjoyed working on it. I had a lot of fun.